All right. Politicians on both sides of the aisle are reacting to the $4.8 trillion budget proposal outlined by the White House, which increases military spending and cuts non-defense spending. Tomorrow, OMB Acting Director Russ Vought will be testifying on Capitol Hill about the president's budget. Join us now, Congressman John Yarmuth, House Budget Committee Chairman, who will oversee that hearing. It's good to see you, Congressman. And you know, we already talked about, I don't know whether you saw the Journal's op-ed piece, because the Journal basically says, OK, cue the progressive outrage. We know we're going to hear about the non-discretion or the discretionary cuts. But the Journal points out that over the next decade, that discretionary spending is flat and that entitlements are going up 54%. So this doesn't seem like a draconian budget. But is that how you would characterize it?
Not at all, because well, it's good to be with you again. What the Republican administration has done is what they continue to do, which is to continue to cut taxes and take it out of the social safety net and other important investments for the American people. They extend the 2017 tax cuts past 2025. That's an additional cost of $1.5 trillion. And they cut about $1.6 trillion, again, out of programs that support the American people. So it's pretty draconian from our perspective, and it's also a betrayal of a deal which we made 6 months ago. I mean, we passed a 2-year budget deal based on a bipartisan compromise. The president endorsed it, and then 6 months later he submits a budget proposal that totally undoes it.
The Journal points out that the first 4 months of this fiscal year, tax revenues are up 6%. You're talking about the tax cuts. So you hear it again and again. It's not a revenue problem. It's a spending problem. Where would you focus the cuts? I mean, it's a guns and butter discussion, I guess. Do you think we should be cutting defense spending and maybe doing more for student loans? Or I don't know. Where would you like to? I guess you want to.
I absolutely do. Yeah. I absolutely do think we ought to be cutting defense spending.
Okay.
But again, that's a deal we made last year. We accepted the people who wanted a higher defense number in exchange for getting a higher non-defense number. And remember, part of that non-defense budget is Homeland Security, it's FBI, it's a lot of important security elements. And so it's not just programs that like SNAP and other things. So what we're concerned about is, once again, CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, issued their annual report last week. They showed that the 2017 tax cuts basically reduced GDP by 1% and added 0.2% in revenue. So 80% of the tax cuts were not paid for. Now they want to extend the tax cuts past 2025, which will have the same result. So what we would say is we do need to deal particularly with health care costs, but you don't do it by cutting services or reimbursement to providers. What you do is deal with prescription drugs, deal with the structure of the revenue side, and because we can't do anything about the aging population when we have 10,000 people turning 65 every day. That's not going to change.
Right. The also pointed out is that the outlays, which we have, are now, and this is what we're spending, 21.6% of GDP, which is way more than we can really afford. And it just sounds like you'd like to even spend more on infrastructure. You would get all the savings from cutting back on defense spending, or you just want to spend more than we're already spending as a percentage of GDP?
No, I think we actually, again, have to recapture some of that lost tax revenue to help finance this. But
the revenue is above what it was. It's still, the spending is what's really rising. So you want to do it through just more revenue to spend more revenue. You don't want to.
Well, if you look at the CBO report, what they said was they've had to continually up their estimate of the revenue lost because of that tax cut. So yes, revenues are up, but they're not nearly as much as they would be. And meanwhile, as we know, mandatory spending programs, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security are going up, and we're not really doing anything
do you want to do something there?
Of that.
I mean, the other thing, since 2017, when Trump took office, we're spending 21% more than we spent so this just doesn't sound like a draconian tax cut. It doesn't sound like we're pulling the rug out from under the revenue side or the spending side of the equation. We're spending more and more and more, and a lot of that is from from entitlements.
Well, exactly. Discretionary spending has not increased really for the last 10 or 12 years. We're really still running at a flat rate. And I will correct one thing, because they do cut non-defense discretionary past 2021 2% a year for 10 years, and they do increase defense spending by 2% a year. So the disparity gets wider. But on the mandatory spending side, again, we've got a growing population. We can't do anything about that. We either have to have more people paying into those funds, Social Security and into to Medicare. Immigration is a good way to do that, bring in more people. But also, we can really go after some of the costs. We'd have to go after pharmaceutical costs. You know, I heard yesterday that the state of Utah, their public employees, they send them to Mexico, pay for their plane ticket, and give them $500 because that saves them money on their prescription drug costs. That's absurd.
Yep. Well, I saw a Trump ad yesterday. I think it was from the AARP, which could have been an ad from your side of the aisle. I mean, it was about, I'm not saying I agreed with all of them, but they're talking about everywhere else in the world, the prices are here for prescription drugs, and they're much higher here, but they don't point out there's price controls over there, and there's no innovation happening in the rest of the world. So, I mean, I disagree with the premise of the whole Trump ad, but it sounds like you'd like to import those price controls here.
Well, we can. There are steps that we know that can be effective. We can re-import drugs. We can do a lot of things to hold this cost down.
We're re-importing price controls, and then we can re-import a lack of innovation too. Theoretically, we just got to be careful. We got to be careful, Congressman.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Kentucky's got a big game tonight, so.
Absolutely.
All right, yeah. So good. I haven't decided whether I want to wish you good.
I'm primarily a Cardinal fan, and we've won 10 in a row. We're number 5 in the country. So I'm happy.
I saw that recently. Yeah, I've seen that recently. You got my coach. You got the Xavier coach. You stole him.
Chris Mack. He's awesome.
You stole him unceremonious. I mean, it was nasty what you did, really, for money. Anyway, thank you.
Imagine that.
All right. Yeah, can you believe it? Thanks, Congressman. All right. Yep.